Section 1. The Fifth Amendment's Grand Jury Clause, a cornerstone of justice. The Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution stands as a beacon of individual liberty, ensuring fundamental rights for all citizens. Among its crucial provisions is the Grand Jury Clause, a safeguard against the arbitrary exercise of government power in criminal prosecutions. This clause mandates that individuals accused of capital or infamous crimes must be indicted by a grand jury before facing trial. This requirement is not a mere formality. It is a cornerstone of American jurisprudence, designed to protect individuals from unfounded accusations and ensure that the government meets a high burden of proof before depriving someone of their liberty. Section 2. Safeguarding Liberty, the Purpose of Grand Jury Indictments. The grand jury system serves as a critical buffer between the accused and the state, preventing the prosecution of individuals based on flimsy or politically motivated charges. Composed of ordinary citizens, the grand jury acts as an independent body, reviewing evidence presented by the prosecution to determine whether there is sufficient cause to believe that a crime has been committed and that the accused person is likely responsible. This process, known as finding probable cause, acts as a crucial check on prosecutorial discretion, ensuring that the immense power of the state is not wielded unjustly. The grand jury's role is not to determine guilt or innocence, but rather to act as a shield against unfounded accusations, protecting individuals from the ordeal of an unwarranted trial. Section 3. Defining infamous crimes, a look at federal law and Supreme Court precedent. The Fifth Amendment's requirement for a grand jury indictment applies to capital or infamous crimes. While capital crimes, those punishable by death, are easily understood, the definition of an infamous crime requires further examination. Title 18, United States Code, Section 4083, defines an infamous crime as any offense punishable by imprisonment in a penitentiary. The Supreme Court has further clarified this definition, holding that any offense carrying a potential sentence of more than 1 year of imprisonment constitutes an infamous crime and thus triggers the Fifth Amendment's grand jury requirement. This interpretation emphasizes the gravity of such offenses and underscores the importance of affording individuals accused of such crimes the full protection of the grand jury process. Section 4. The erosion of a right states bypassing grand juries. Despite the clear constitutional mandate for grand jury indictments in cases involving serious offenses, a disturbing trend has emerged in the United States. 23 states have adopted procedures that allow prosecutors to initiate felony prosecutions, even for offenses carrying lengthy prison sentences, based on a sworn statement of facts known as an information. This practice effectively bypasses the grand jury, allowing prosecutors to secure a trial without having to first convince a group of citizens that there is sufficient evidence to proceed. This erosion of the grand jury system undermines a fundamental safeguard of liberty, tilting the scales of justice in favor of the prosecution and eroding the rights of the accused. Section 5. Trial by affidavit, a departure from due process. The use of informations in lieu of grand jury indictments introduces a troubling concept: trial by affidavit. When a prosecutor files an information, they are essentially asking a judge to accept their version of events, as presented in written form, without the benefit of a grand jury's independent review, or the opportunity for the accused to challenge the evidence. This practice raises serious concerns about due process, as it allows the accuser, the state, to proceed towards trial based on their own unchecked assertions. The lack of an independent assessment of the evidence at this crucial early stage undermines the presumption of innocence and creates an environment where individuals may be forced to defend themselves against charges that lack sufficient evidentiary support. Section 6. The constitutional implications of circumventing grand juries. The practice of circumventing grand juries in felony cases raises profound constitutional concerns. The Fifth Amendment's language is unambiguous. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. The use of informations directly contradicts this clear constitutional command, essentially rendering the grand jury clause null and void in the states that have adopted this practice. This deviation from the Constitution's explicit requirements undermines the very foundation of our legal system, which relies on the faithful execution of the Constitution's guarantees. This departure from constitutional principles sets a dangerous precedent, eroding the very fabric of our legal system and jeopardizing the rights of all Americans. Section 7. International Human Rights Standards and the Right to a Fair Trial. The right to a fair trial, a cornerstone of international human rights law, is enshrined in Article 14 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. This right encompasses several fundamental guarantees, including the presumption of innocence, the right to an impartial tribunal, and the right to adequate time and facilities to prepare a defense. The practice of using informations to bypass grand jury indictments directly contravenes these international standards. By allowing prosecutors to proceed towards trial based on untested allegations, this practice undermines the presumption of innocence and places individuals at a significant disadvantage in mounting a robust defense. This disregard for internationally recognized fair trial principles further underscores the gravity of the issue and highlights the urgent need for reform. Section 8. The fuel for mass incarceration. A broken system. The erosion of the grand jury system has far-reaching consequences, contributing to the crisis of mass incarceration that plagues the United States. By allowing prosecutors to initiate felony prosecutions based on untested allegations, the use of information creates a system that is primed for abuse. Prosecutors, often facing intense political pressure to secure convictions, may be incentivized to pursue charges even in cases where the evidence is weak or circumstantial. This prosecutorial overreach, facilitated by the absence of grand jury scrutiny, results in more individuals being drawn into the criminal justice system, often facing lengthy legal battles and the prospect of incarceration, even in cases where the charges may not be fully supported. Section 9. The disproportionate impact on marginalized communities. The consequences of circumventing grand juries are not felt equally across society. The practice of using information disproportionately impacts marginalized communities who are already overrepresented in the criminal justice system. Individuals from these communities, often facing implicit bias and lacking access to adequate legal resources, are particularly vulnerable to prosecutorial overreach. The absence of a grand jury, acting as a check on the prosecution's power, further exacerbates existing disparities within the criminal justice system, perpetuating a cycle of injustice that has devastating consequences for individuals, families, and communities. Section 10. Restoring Justice, a call for constitutional adherence. Addressing the injustice inherent in the practice of bypassing grand juries requires a multifaceted approach. First and foremost, there must be a return to constitutional adherence. The 23 states that currently allow prosecutors to initiate felony prosecutions based on information must revisit their laws and restore the grand jury's rightful place as a bulwark against government overreach. This restoration of constitutional principles is not merely a matter of legal technicality, it is a moral imperative, essential for upholding the fundamental rights of all Americans. Section 11. Conclusion. Upholding the Fifth Amendment for a more just future. The right to indictment by a grand jury, enshrined in the Fifth Amendment, stands as a testament to the founders' profound understanding of the dangers of unchecked government power. The current practice in many states of circumventing this right through the use of information represents a grave departure from constitutional principles, undermining the presumption of innocence, eroding due process guarantees, and contributing to the crisis of mass incarceration. It is imperative that we, as a society committed to justice, recognize the inherent unfairness of this practice and take decisive steps to restore the grand jury's rightful place in our legal system. By upholding the Fifth Amendment's guarantees, we can create a more just and equitable society for all.
But I'm not